We're on with Doron Fagelson, key account executives with DataArt's media practice, looking after a portfolio of client work in the arts and technology space. A very interesting conversation we had about the trends overall in the art market. And now I want to turn to something that is borderline incomprehensible to me, which is NFTs, and what the notion of what is art and what is collectible and what is tradable on all of these platforms. And even if I can be persuaded that NFT is a legitimate collectible object, I can never be persuaded that NFT is a good name for the category. I mean, who comes up with a non-fungible token to describe a work of art? So what is it and where is the world going, Doron?
Yes, thank you, Alexei. I do agree that NFT does come across initially as a sort of a very strange term for essentially a digital asset that includes with it a certificate of authenticity. I mean, essentially, an NFT gives you sort of like a digital contract of ownership. And so it can be applied to digital art, but it can be applied to really sort of any collectible rather. And people are also experimenting with ways of actually tying them to physical objects as well, which we don't have to get into. But I think that the big story of the art market in 2021 has certainly been this explosion of NFTs. And certainly many more people have heard of the term NFT, whereas perhaps, a year or two ago would never have heard the term before.
Indeed, and it opened the whole wave of new technology platforms, right? Those NFT have to be created digitally, they have to be displayed or presented. I guess digitally they have to be traded. So can you tell me where all of this mysterious activity is taking place?
Yeah, I would even say that as much as having sort of new nomenclature for digital assets that we've never heard of before, like NFTs, there's also a whole kind of lexicon of words specifically tied to the actual process of creating them. So, for example, the way that the industry now refers to creating a new NFT, it's called minting. And so there are platforms that allow artists, say, to take a digital artwork that they've created and then go and mint that digital artwork, which essentially just means it is registered on a blockchain with a smart contract. And there are many platforms like OpenSea, for example. It's one of the biggest marketplaces for NFTs that will provide artists with the tools to do that, then allow that artist to sell their digital assets as NFTs through those platforms. But as much as there are, specialist startups that have developed platforms and technologies to do this, it's also now got the attention of bigger players as well, which is also quite fascinating in such a small space of time. You have Sotheby's, which I believe partnered with a dedicated NFT platform last year, and just as recently as December, Christie's announced that they were also partnering with OpenSea. So institutions now, as well as, technology, agile savvy startups are fully, I think, invested in these new digital assets. So it's a really exciting and interesting space.
Indeed. Based on you're an observer of the industry, do you expect this to be more than a fad? Do you expect it to keep growing next year and beyond?
Yeah, so about a year ago, actually, I think it was about exactly a year ago, I think I attended a Clubhouse talk on NFTs. And one of the questions I asked at that time was, is this more of a fad? Is this going to just be sort of a flash in the pan and perhaps not last? Because, of course, cryptocurrencies are so volatile. And many NFTs are actually bought with cryptocurrency. But I think if you look at how things have played out over the last year, it's hard to see NFTs going away. I think that they've had enormous amount of attention, not just from within the art world and big industry players, but also, celebrities such as Paris Hilton. Lots of people have kind of entered into this brave new world. And I see it as definitely a new area of digital art that is probably here to stay.
Well, it's interesting you said you attended a Clubhouse talk on whether NFTs are just a fad. It turned out the Clubhouse was a fad and NFTs seem to will have persisted. I want to talk very briefly about the other thing that happened in 2021, at least on my in my field of vision, was not NFTs. And what happened was, on my Instagram feed in recent months, there was a bunch of posts from friends who said, "Oh, I'm the last person in New York to go to the interactive Van Gogh exhibition," which assumed that everybody saw it. And I've personally been not to Van Gogh, but to a few other immersive arts, the projected art, these rooms full of beautiful flowers, dynamic, interactive art, fascinating stuff. And it seemed like, because most of New York has seen it, there's a lot of money in that, and there's a lot of more of these shows popping up. So that is also a trend, isn't it? What's going on there?
Indeed, yes. This is definitely another story from 2021. I mean, I think that prior to 2021, you did have you did have several sort of immersive art experiences that you could find, but they just really, I think, weren't so much on people's radar. Certainly, if you look at 2021, yeah, it's definitely, the Van Gogh immersive experience is sort of the one that has been most reported on, and also probably the most visited. I think it's had over 3 million visitors to date. It's a far-flung exhibit in many, many cities across the world. And it's supposed to be a really cool 360-degree immersive experience, really seeing his works from many different angles. There's many others, actually. I know in 2020, for example, the Louvre created a VR version of the Mona Lisa. So that was actually an exhibit that you could simply view online. You didn't even actually have to be at the Louvre to do that, if you had the VR glasses to see the work. I know that the Met last year also partnered with Verizon to launch the Met Unframed exhibit. And that was also immersive. It was also partly a gaming experience, because what you could do as a visitor was not only actually look at those paintings up close with VR glasses, you could also kind of go into virtual galleries in a sort of an interactive way, kind of using a tap to move interface on your phone. And you could also actually sort of complete certain games to unlock certain art pieces that you could then sort of look at in your own home, on your own walls, using augmented reality. So part of the, I think, appeal of some of these new immersive experiences, they're really also quite interactive, as well as being sort of like visually very impressive.
I think it's fascinating because it's effectively brings, I mean, to use a terrible cliche, but it does bring the arts to the masses in so many forms that are easily consumable. And I think it's a wonderful thing, making it so much more accessible, so much more understandable, and perhaps relatable. Before we conclude, Doron, I have to ask you something. How about we have the same conversation a year from now, and then you tell us all about the things or non-things that will be considered art or art experience at that point. Something tells me there will be a whole bunch of new things that we'll see and be surprised about in 22.
I would love that, Alexei, and I'm willing even to make a bold prediction, which is always a very bad idea. But I would guess that one of the things we'll be talking about at this time next year will be the metaverse. But let's just leave it at that. Good.
The meta conversation about the verse, or the conversation about metaverse. I'm still confused. Anyway, Doron, thanks very much for your time and sharing all the insights. Fascinating stuff. Thanks again.